Welcome back, all you beautiful people out there in Cyberland. Another episode of... My daughter's laughing at me. Another episode of Simply Italian. Okay, so today we're going to do an old classic. We're going to do steak pizziaola. Now, there's a couple of different ways that you can do this. The way it was always done in our house, my mother, my grandmother, was kind of a thin cut of steak, and usually was layered in a pan with fresh tomatoes, onions, and sometimes they put a little mushroom in there, some fresh mushrooms if they had them, or wild mushrooms if my father and my grandfather had picked them. So that's kind of what I'm going to do today, but I'm going to do it a little bit different. I'm going to do it in a saute pan. We had to modify it when we used to do it in the restaurant, because obviously you don't have time to layer a pan of steak and tomatoes and onion. So we had to modify it and do it in a saute pan on the stovetop. And what I have here is I have half an onion, I have some 3 garlic cloves, I have a cup of diced Roma tomatoes that I just diced, and we're going to naturally use olive oil, fresh basil, fresh parsley, and some dried oregano. And we're going to get it going. You can also, if you wanted to, you can use a little bit of white wine, or you can even use a little bit of marsala, which is also good. Quick story about steak pizziaola. When we had the restaurant, one of my best friends, Geno, used to come in for dinner a couple times a month. And most of the time he'd call me and make a reservation, and he'd always want steak pizziaola. But there were the times that they didn't call and make a reservation, I'd see an order come in for steak pizziaola, and I knew who was in the dining room, because we didn't always have it. We used to run it from time to time as a special. But anyway, so this is kind of a little tribute to my buddy Gene up in Newtown. And we're going to get started. I'm heating the pan. I'm going to add some extra virgin olive oil to the pan. I have a thin cut ribeye, and I'm going to season both sides of it with a little salt and a little cracked pepper. Again, always season your food. Dice the onion real quick here. Too quick. Now, if you use a thicker cut of steak, you can put the steak in first and let it start to cook and maybe brown a little. However, I'm using a thinner cut because that's always the way it was done in our house. So I'm going to start sauteing the onions, the garlic, the tomato, the mushroom, just for a minute or two, and then I'm going to add the steak to it. Now, there's a big misconception too. Steak pizziaola is not just a grilled steak with tomato sauce on top. That's not even close to what it's supposed to be, and I've actually seen that done in places, and it's just not right. Alright, so take a little fresh parsley. Okay, so we're going to add the onion, the garlic and parsley to the pan, as you can hear it. Nice hot pan. You always want a hot pan. And now I'm going to add, actually I'm just going to let this saute for a minute, let the onions cook a little bit and get a little translucent. I'm going to add my steak to this. Add that and let that start to saute. Now this is a thin cut, so it's not going to take that long. Let that saute, and I'm going to actually throw my tomatoes in. And I'm also going to throw a few sliced mushrooms in. Not too many. Just regular sliced white mushrooms. Season this with pretty generously with some salt. And again, some cracked black pepper. And some dried oregano. Let this cook. Now you're going to get some water out of the tomato. Now you're going to think that this may be overcooked. You're going to think that it may be overcooked. It may be a little bit overcooked. Again, if you want to use, if you like it medium rare or rare, use a thicker cut of steak. This may be a little bit overcooked, but it's not going to be tough at all because of the juice and everything that's in the pan. The tomatoes that are going to cook down to basically almost a sauce. Okay, so the steak is ready to turn. I'm going to flip it, and as you can see, it really is tender. And if you use like a ribeye where there's a little bit of marbling in it, and everything is really cooking down nice, the steak again is not going to be tough. Now I'm going to add a splash of water to this, just to loosen it so it's not tight and thick. Now I'm going to add, some fresh basil. And this is basically done. I'm going to turn the heat down and just let it cook down on lower heat just for a couple of minutes. Do something you probably think is crazy, but when you taste it you'll know it's not. I'm going to add just a pinch of grated Romano cheese to this. Because of the tomatoes, and because it makes kind of a sauce, well it is basically, but it's a fresh tomato sauce. It's not like a sauce that's cooked for hours on the stove and just thrown on a piece of grilled steak. So this is basically, this is done right now. I'm going to re-season it with salt one more time and a little more black pepper. Now also, if you like it a little spicy, some hot pepper, forget about it, fantastic. That's how fast this is. Again, this is a thinner cut of steak. And if you use a thicker cut, it's going to take you a little bit longer. But look at how beautiful this is. And this is not overcooked. This is tender. I'm going to take this. Right now. You don't want to overdo it either. Now, the other trick is this. Take a nice piece of bread and you dip it in the sauce. Oh my God. Unbelievable. Okay, so now we're going to do the taste test. You want to garnish your plate. Just so when you put it on the table, it looks pretty. Remember, if it doesn't look good right away, it's probably not going to taste as good as it is. And we're going to taste it now. Again, look at how tender this is, and it's not overcooked. So we're going to take a mushroom, some of the onion. Oh my God! It's so good with the fresh tomato, fresh basil, fresh parsley. It's such a nice flavor, and it's light. It's not heavy, even though it is a steak. So there you have it. Thanks for tuning in again, and we'll see you next week. Ciao.